Welcome to season 2 of Fractional CMOs and the 90-Day Win. I'm Dean Way. In this season, we're going to talk through scenarios that companies and these CMOs experience and to share some lessons learned and tips on how to get the most out of a fractional CMO that you've hired. Hey, Kari.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, thank you. So, Kari, our hypothetical, you just started our hypothetical 1-year engagement. What's the first problem your clients need to start fixing typically? And also, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I'll start with who I am. Yeah. I'm a fractional chief marketing officer. I actually live in the Bay Area of California, and I have 35 years of experience working at some phenomenal companies.
Started when you were 9 years old. Got it. Yep. Keep going.
I've worked a really strong background in financial services. So I've worked at companies like Discover Card and Charles Schwab, but I also have a really strong tech background. I've actually been at Google Cloud and Adobe and GoDaddy, and now I bring all that knowledge and help small and medium businesses, catapult their growth.
Waiting for you to list a company that I had not heard of. We haven't gotten to one yet, so that's excellent. Keep going. So the main problem you try to look for, or you typically see when you first start an engagement.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that these kinds of companies don't have their strategic plan in place yet. They might have some junior marketers that have been bootstrapping everything and had some success, but they don't have the resources nor the experience to really put together a really solid plan that will get them to their next level of growth. And that's really where I start, is looking at what they're doing now, kind of doing an audit, and then figuring out what their growth goals are and where I need to get them to.
Okay. And then Troy, how about you?
I'm
sorry, Troy. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to remind you, let the audience know a little bit about yourself, and then we'll talk about the sort of first problem you like to tackle or you go hunting for, because it's there, even if they don't know it's there.
Yeah, so I'm Troy Sandidge. I'm a fractional CMO as well. I specialize in go-to-market growth strategy and brand positioning and event-led growth optimization. I've worked with various brands near and far, and I second that. And I find the biggest problem, or at least a big problem that I identify right away, is that they're operating off of last year's metrics. They're looking at what happened last year or history, and based off those numbers, this is what we're defining our budget versus evaluating where are we trying to go within this current year. How are we navigating and how are we moving forward? And most times those numbers are off from performance metrics and budgets.
Right.
Yeah, I would second that. I think it's always rather surprising to me how many companies don't really track very good metrics. They really don't have their hand on the pulse of where they're making money, and really tracking where all those revenue sources are coming from. So they don't even know where to fix it.
And I would add, they're also bloated. They're bloated, irrelevant. In some cases, they're just tracking for what looks good from a vanity perspective, but they're not revenue generating performance or activities involved.
Yeah. Or they're easy. It's the easiest fruit to pick, and yet not the best ways to really catapult your revenue and your growth.
Yeah. I worked in marketing once for a company that, for them, a $500,000 sale was small. And they would, the head of marketing used to love to talk about how many people ad impressions he got and clicks on Facebook. I said, are we picking up a lot of $500,000 customers on Facebook?
Yeah, no.
Is that kind of our place for that? But it was great metrics. He could say, oh yeah, we got in front of 30,000 people. I said, okay, that's great.
People don't really understand, I think, also what each tactic brings to the table.
Yeah.
Right? Facebook.
And they only know tactics.
Yeah. It's okay for certain things, but depending on whether you're a B2C or B2B company, you're going to have a very different mix of marketing programs that you have in place.
Yeah. Hey, Troy, so you mentioned about they're looking back right? So looking at last year's or 2 years data, right? They're looking back instead of knowing how forecasting is not just looking at what happened last year and then projecting forward, right? Forecast. So, but besides like that kind of data and even sharing that kind of data with you, like what else should that CEO do to get maximum value, you think, out of you or your fellow fractional CMOs?
Positioning.
Yeah.
Why am I here? And defining that, and either creating space or making it clear my role in serving, because many fractional CMOs and other fractionals, and especially minority and underrepresented who also are in those spaces, we don't have time. We both have way too many years of experience and to have to qualify or validate our existence. If you're here, we're here because you have a problem. It's like call Ghostbusters. Like, we're here.
Yeah.
Let's establish that. And I think when you create a clear, defined pathway of how I'm serving, and I would typically prefer to be in line with executive decisions or executive ears, so we can have a clear conversation versus going 3 tiers up, 4 tiers down, and doing the dance, and somehow something gets miscommunicated along the way. It makes it a lot easier when you're trying to either implement the strategy or assess and do auditing, or even more so driving for execution and implementation of certain things.
Right.
Yeah,
Kari,
absolutely. I second that. I mean, there has to be a really clear line of reporting. You know, I work for the CEO, and the CEO needs to make clear who my main partners are. In most cases, it's a B2B situation. So I am in lockstep with the head of sales, and we need to work together on making sure all those marketing qualified sales that my team has unearthed through various marketing programs actually are nurtured when they're handed over to sales, and then actually, which ones are actually going to close. So it's really important that those, pivotal relationships are defined and said, you're going to work together, right? And those KPIs are tied to each one of us.
Yeah, I had a guest who I don't know if they were being literal or figurative, but they said on the first day in front of the leadership team and all of the middle management, the CEO put his arm around me, around my shoulder. And I don't know, again, these days you would not normally like touch anyone, right? But maybe this was a while ago. And he said, this is so-and-so, and she's the CMO. From now on, all marketing stuff, you go to her. And that was it, right? It was very clear. Do not come to me to go to the marketing person. You go to the marketing person. I have my other stuff. So that's pretty good. So
yeah, and I second that too. I mean, most times when companies are bringing me in, a lot of times the CEO is the one that has been kind of driving marketing as well. And they just can't. There's just too many hats. Yeah. And when you get to a certain point, you need to bring in someone who has more expertise, in marketing. And that is their sole focus. Right?
Well, let's talk about that then, Kari. What sort of lessons would you think pass along to other fractional CMOs if they're walking into a company and there are already people working there in marketing? Like, there's not a CMO or anything, but maybe there's an ads person or an email person or print person for all I know, right? Like, what advice would you give to like maybe newer or other fractional CMOs? Like, you're about to walk into an existing group of junior to mid people.
Yeah, I would say tread lightly. A lot of these people have been there for a long time. Everybody goes to work trying to do their best, right? And you need to tread lightly so that you don't offend anyone. This is your new team. And part of that is you also need to audit and understand what their skills are, what they're doing well, and where the gaps are. Right? Depending on what that new strategic plan is that you're building. Because in many cases, the company you're going into don't know all of the marketing programs that you could stand up in order to reach success. And therefore, there's not the people in place with the skills to actually make them happen. So I would say you have to tread lightly and get to know your team. And it is a team effort, right? You can't do this alone as a CMO. You don't do this alone. It takes a large team to pull off these programs. So, get to know your people, part of the reasons why I love to work is I love to get to know my team. I like to know if they're willing to share, how are your kids? What kind of dog do you have? What are your hobbies? What do you enjoy? I think those things lead to building a better team environment and better communication and over time trust. And that's really important. That's really important to me.
What do you think, or what advice would you give to fractional CMOs who are walking into like an existing team? And like and add on to that, like in your experience, how often do you end up staying in the leadership role, and versus how often do you also have to pick up kind of a management role as well in there?
Well, you're reading my mind telepathically. Yeah. So I was going to echo was when you're a fractional CMO, you need to understand what situation you're walking into.
Yeah.
Are you Phil Jackson, strategy advisory only? Or are you like coming in as Kobe Bryant, an all-star player? A lot of fractional CMOs maybe don't want to get their hands dirty. They want to be high-level advisory, delegate down, review and automate, delegate down. Or depending on the environment, you're Kobe Bryant. You're expected not only to lead this group, but also put in the work. And you need to define which one are you? Are you the coach or are you the all-star player? Without having that understanding, what happens is scope creep, unrealistic expectations. You're not being able to validate your efforts and your energy and all the things that you bring to the table. And it's a disaster, a complete disaster coming from someone who knows of experience. So when you walk up in here and you see the marketing team, you assess into the audit and all those things, but you need to make it clear, how am I going to serve you and how are we going to work together to make this happen? So we have clear direction of conversation, how we're navigating.
That reminds me of the great philosopher and management consultant, Mike Tyson, who said, everyone's got a plan till he gets smacked in the mouth, right? Then it's really the you that's in there and not the plan you that you thought you were going to have in there. All right, then, Troy, let's flip that around for a second. So instead of being like the fractional CMO coming into that environment, you're the full-time employee who's already working on the marketing team. The company just hired a fractional CMO. So like, Troy, like what do you like do or not do, or even better, not even ask that. Like, what should that employee expect and not expect from you when you come into that role? And then we're going to go to Kari after you.
Having been on both sides of the coin, I definitely the employees should activate upon themselves. Here's who I am. Here's what I'm doing. Can I get clarity on why you're here? The CEO can paint a whole picture, do a whole conference of why this person is here. That's great. I need to know, since we're working one-on-one, why you're here, what your skill set is, and me aligning with, I have more depth of knowledge and understanding of the company. What do you need so I can give it to you so we can get this thing going? And I think what employees should not do, especially if they're new or mid-level, to not necessarily see the fractional as a threat. That's just creating the wrong mind space. See them as a third-party extender, maybe a new ear to the CEO to get something across you couldn't get across yourself. Let's assess and lead with the benefit of the doubt that this person is going to be a lifeline to help me versus a threat to me.
Right. A lever to get stuff moved.
Yeah, I totally agree. It is the wrong tact if you're going to see this fractional CMO as a threat. That is not the place to start. Not the place to start. Where you want to start is, how can I help you? How can I help you get information to get a clear vision of what's going on at this company, right? I work here as an FTE in this example. I'm seeing some things that aren't working so well. How can I, level that up to you so you can see it and figure it out and find it out as quick as possible so that we can go fix it, together. And that also to see the CMO as your advocate, right? And that they are there to communicate up to the CEO to say, this isn't working so well. And the team has been suffering, in this environment for quite some time. And here are some solutions, right? So definitely don't see this person as a threat. See them as an advocate and someone coming in with a fresh perspective, with more skills than what's existing at the company, right?
For a while.
And a lot of times, the existing people, you don't know what you don't know. And that's why your CEO's brought them in, right? To help you. And I also think if you're bringing in the right fractional CMO, they're a great leader, not just to get things done, but also to groom people, right? Because I come in knowing I'm not going to stay forever, right? I need to help people grow into roles. I need to help people take on more responsibility if they're capable for it, or get them trained into it, right?
Okay,
because
so
once they're ready to leave the nest, I'm gone.
right. Well, that actually takes me into my next question. So, do you think, in your opinion, okay, or in your experience, Kari, and then we'll go to Troy, is a fractional engagement better for everyone if it's a marathon or a sprint? Like, should engagements have defined end dates, or should they have sort of an ongoing but part-time nature? What works better, generally speaking?
I think first of all, you got to define what a marathon is. I mean,
a marathon, it never stops.
Then no, because I'm not a full-time employee, right?
But you could be a part-time employee for a really long time.
Yes, and I think you can, but I think that's to be discovered as you get into the company, right? I think for my clientele, I have a 3-month minimum. It takes me that long to get in, get to know the team. What are the KPIs? Who are the main players? What's the strategic goals? What is the plan? All that good stuff. And then usually we're building the building blocks. So that takes at least 6 months, right? So, most of my clients stay with me for at least a year, because then we're standing up marketing campaigns, and then we determine, right? Is the team ready to take over? Are they ready to take this on? Or do we need to hire a new full-time CMO? And I'm happy to help hire them, just like I help them hire in junior people under me, right?
So you're in the sprint camp. You think they have like a defined end date. Even if you go past the end date, a defined end date will keep everything focused and So, and how about you, Troy?
I think so.
Marathon or sprint?
I say as a marketer, classically, it depends. And I add to this with fractional CMO, something to consider. How we define a sprint and marathon is different per person and how you want to navigate. So for me, a sprint could be defined by a project specifically, or literally a duration, whether that's 2 weeks, a month. A marathon could be defined as we're going to have an annual commitment, or a marathon could be the project is this and we're rotating in sprints, however you want to navigate that. I do feel, though, if you are a fractional CMO, that means you have some type of, I'm not here full time because you're not paying me full time wages or benefits. Is to really lean in on the sprint, especially assuming you have a multitude of clients.
Yeah.
If you have a micro set of clients who are working you like full-time CMO, you're not going to give the same amount of commitment to your multitude of clients as you would with really define sprints. So I would lean on sprints.
Okay. Yeah. I have a confession from when all of my years and decades working in corporate jobs is that I started every job, and on day one, I knew what my last day on that job was going to be. I didn't tell anyone else, but it was usually like between 2 and maybe in one case 5 years. But I just knew me, and I knew that if I just started showing up every day, and I wouldn't really accomplish anything. But if I knew, okay, I'm going to be out of here 24 months from now, which means that I need to learn everything in the first 6 months, and then I need a year of doing my best job doing that, and then 6 months of working, but also looking for the next thing, and then go again. And for me, every corporate job was a sprint, and I more than anything else, I do attribute any modicum of success I did have in corporate world to always treating every job as a sprint, even if I was the only one who knew I was running it. So easy to tell why camp I fall in, right? So Troy, who should be contacting you, and how should they be contacting you?
If you're a B2B, if you are a funded startup, if you are a VC firm looking to provide high-level marketing on maybe a budget pricing for your multiple portfolio, I'm your person to talk to. At FindSure all over the internet, and findsure.com or growwithshore.com to see all my links.
And Kari, how about you? Who should contact you, and how do you prefer them to contact you?
Yeah, I think the sweet spot for me are B2B software and SaaS companies, but also fintech companies. I think the easiest way to get a hold of me is, at Kari Franz on X, or you can go to my website, brigandmarketingservices.com and set up an appointment. Let's talk.
All right. Awesome. All right, guys, thanks so much for being here. This has been great. I really enjoy myself. I love talking to you guys. I'm not a fractional CMO. I just love talking to fractional CMOs. You're also weirdly different. I don't get it. So thanks
weird in a good way.
Definitely.
In a good way. Yeah, in a great way, Kari. All right. That's it for me. Thanks, Kari. Thanks, Troy. I'm Dean. Guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.